Welcome to a special midsummer version of the old shop.
I know I've mentioned before, probably more than once, about the way that the rain and then the sunshine has made such a difference this year in the wildflowers. And just along the lane from the old shop, just literally along the lane, round the corner, the hedgerow is just amazing. There's so much to see. And I went for a little walk just the other way from the heath. I don't normally do that in the mornings, but there's just the number of species, if you actually did a formal count, is formidable. Anyway, I noticed the yarrow is out, and that's traditional to gather on St John's Eve. I was actually looking to see if there was any St John's worts, because there's not much of that around here, but I did see some along the lane last year. In fact, I collected some along the lane last year for dyeing with, and I haven't done that yet. I might do that today. It's dry. I dried it in the end, so we'll see about that. But anyway, although there wasn't any St John's wort that I could see, there's about 100 million other things. So I thought I would just show you the yarrow, and also this hedge here along the lane is something we don't see very much now, which is elm.
Welcome to Midsummer's Eve at the old shop. Today is the 23rd of June, which is St John's Eve, and tomorrow is St John's Day, 24th, and this is the traditional Midsummer's Day. I've always found this a very evocative date, and when you look at all the folklore, when they talk about midsummer, really in general these things are practices that took place on Midsummer's Eve today, and such things as gathering herbs for medicinal purposes, which are supposed to be most effective today. All sorts of things, and all over the world. It's really culturally diverse, the things that were done to celebrate today.
Just after the solstice, but this actually is the day, particularly today, St John's Eve, that so much of the folklore around midsummer is connected to. And I'd like to explore a bit of that and just share a bit of it with you. I've just had my coffee, and I thought I'll just give you a quick tour, and also I'll just tell you a little bit about what I'm hoping to do this evening, and have a little party out here for all the beings that are out here and still awake. Obviously the insects will have gone to sleep, and the birds, I expect even the sparrows, will have gone to bed then, but there'll be other creatures awake, so come and join me again for that.
And the midsummer rites included bonfires very, very markedly, and that all points to a connection with the solstice. But it's a standalone festival. It's the festival of John the Baptist's birth rather than his death, which is unusual for a saint. And it seems to be the herald of the dark half of the year, because the light half is finishing, and his birth is the middle of 24th of June, and of course Jesus' birth is 25th of December, exactly 6 months later. So it's, you can hear echoes there of the Holly King and the Oak King, and other sort of similar motifs in folklore and tradition, and I love all that anyway. In fact, there were 3 saints who had bonfires and feasts as part of their feast days, and all in the middle of summer, which I'm interested in. I've done some work about that in the past as well. I lit little fires behind a medieval church and jumped over them and photographed it and videoed it and all sorts of stuff when I was doing a project years ago now, which was a year-long exploration of medieval church festivals and folklore, and my little sort of take on it all. Particularly for me, the folkloric aspects are what I'm really interested in, and I've always found it really resonant, all the traditions. So I thought we'd have a special couple of days of video of the old shop, and I'll show you some of the places around here, and I'll be doing a few activities as well. It's also, I should say, supposed to be the day when the veil is thin, rather as it is at Hallowmas or Halloween, Samhain, and the fair folk are said to be abroad this evening. So it's a good time to experience the veil being thin. And that's one of the things I'm interested in as well for this front garden, because I always call it the fairy garden. So we've got some fairy denizens here. We've got the garden guardian, and we've got the frog, and we've got all sorts of plants here. So I'm going to have some little lanterns alight this evening, and I'm going to try and put some floating candles into the bird bath. We shall see how that works. I've already got some petals in there and to celebrate the day. So anyway, come with me. We'll have a little look around the front garden now. It's not a very big tour, it's not a very big garden, and we'll come back later and we'll look at other things as well to do with Midsummer. Garden gate. I came back in to show you, and the garden is looking very pink. I seem to have a thing about pink roses and pink flowers, and I only realised quite how true that was when I looked at what's flowering at the moment. But there are some lovely roses. They are a bit bashed down by the rain, but look at this, that's called New Dawn. I just think all these beautiful, delicate colours that for me are very, very midsummery. And the other one on the other side here. I'm hoping one day I might be able to have an arch to go around the door. In that case, they will climb over it, which would be really nice. And I've got another one, which is Emily Bronte, and that's a lovely rose, really lovely. As you can see, very, very delicately pale pink. Climbing up on the trellis, we've got yet another delicate pink rose, which is really sweetly scented, called Paul's Himalayan Musk. And this one here, which is, see if I can focus on it here, and that's called Lady of the Lake. And that isn't doing quite so well, vigorously speaking, but it's still okay. I was a bit worried about it at one point. And some lovely clematis, and I don't know what any of the clematis are called. I've just put them in, and they seem to have done really, really well. Even the sparrows are quietened down quite a bit in the middle of the day now. I think that they're probably having a little nap or something. This is my favourite. Well, no, I shouldn't have favourites. I don't really have favourites actually, but it is lovely, and it's a little delicate rose. And I always call this the fairy rose because it has these lovely, you can see on that one, the sort of very pointy sepals. And as it ages, the green sepals turn pink and they turn back on themselves. And then when it has hips, that also the sepals are very pronounced on. They just look very, very delicate and magical. And I think this is a very magical flower as well. It's called Masterwort. I just discovered it's traditional to pick Masterwort at Midsummer. I don't know what you would use it for. It didn't do very well last year. I think it was too dry for it, but this year it's come up. It's lovely. I only just discovered it actually, nestling in the corner there. In the pond, at long, long last the water has cleared and it's much happier. And that's again, a bit water in the garden. Just a little pool like that is just what I wanted, and it, obviously perfect for wildlife as well. Lots and lots of bees in the garden now, partly because of all of the there's one there, the foxgloves that have either seeded themselves, or some of them I found elsewhere in the garden and transplanted there. And you can see it's very pink look everywhere. And it's just a lovely gentle breeze, it's not too hot. And then another traditional midsummer herb is fennel, that's the bronze fennel. It's very airy and delicate. They're wild rose petals I've put in there, into the bird bath that I found just down the lane.
So the scene is set for this evening and the Midsummer Night's Dream. I don't know whether you remember, but at the beginning of the year I did a video when I came to look for the source of the stream, the 100 stream, which is close to the cottage, and I wasn't sure whether I'd found it or not because there are these drainage channels that have been dug and you can't really tell whether it's the source of the stream or whether it's a channel leading away from the source, but it's certainly somewhere around here. Anyway, I've come back down to the same little footpath where it's like a greenway this afternoon because I wanted to look for some mugwort, which is traditional to collect on Midsummer's Eve, and I found one single stem, that's all, but there are so many wild plants that I thought it'd be really interesting to have a look again. If you do remember, it was bare and you could just walk down to the water or look across and you can't see it at all because it's completely grown up with beautiful lush vegetation. There's just so much growing here. I hadn't realised how much bracken there would be, but it's obviously quite heathy here because there's all this bracken. And a little bit further along, we're just walking where we did before actually, but it's just such a contrast. And light's getting a bit low now, and we're getting a bit of rush hour traffic in the distance. We're quite near the coast road here. Anyway, just look at all these grasses, it's just beautiful. And just a bit further along, there's a lot of purple, it's a vetch, I don't know what, here it is. I don't know the actual type of vetch it is, but I've seen it many times before. But it's just really lovely, even if I can't find mugwort. That's hazel up there in the hedge. It just is so lush and beautiful. And I thought it was just a nice thing to have a quick look at on Midsummer's Eve. I couldn't find any St John's wort either, which I wanted to find, but it doesn't really matter. These things are, the journey is more important than the destination, or whatever the expression is. It's grown up so much you can't actually see where the water is, but it's just lovely. I like these shady parts because it has been quite fierce, the sun, when you are in the sun. And the sun's getting lower now anyway, but even now when you actually are in the light, it is really warm, and you realise how much more comfortable it is when it's like this, shady. Which of course the garden at the old shop will be eventually shady because I've planted so many trees. I found some mugwort and some St John's wort growing close together. They were the two midsummer herbs I was looking for, and I'll just show you some mugwort which I haven't picked there. I'm going to pick that, cut that though, to harvest it, but there will be more coming, so I obviously don't want to take all of anything. But it's lovely to find a little bit from Midsummer. And also I found some St John's wort. Now that isn't really quite ready. I've just picked a couple of sprigs just because it is St John's wort on St John's Eve. And I'll just have that as a little symbolic decoration in my party this evening. So I'll just show you where that's growing. And here is the St John's wort. It is very easy to overlook because it's not in flower properly yet. And you can just see the yellow buds here, but the leaves aren't very large yet either, but you can, once you know St John's wort, it's quite distinctive even though it's at such an early stage. It's normally out at midsummer, so it's just as another illustration of how late things are this year, but it's actually near the end of near the kind of near end of the footpath, so to speak, so I can come back very easily and I shall collect some. Well, I don't know how long it will be, probably a week or two yet, maybe in time for Old St John's Eve, which is the 6th of July, if you take the Julian calendar into account, so I might do that. Anyway, I thought you might like to see what it looks like growing. Well, you don't often seem to see it like this because either it's not there at all or it's in full yellow bright gold flower, but you can see how highly coloured the flowers are. Even the tight buds are really quite vibrant. And very flame-like actually for St John's Eve, which is so associated with fire.
When I got home yesterday evening, I decided to make some mugwort mead from the mugwort which I'd found not growing near the lane. It was actually on the footpath or at the side, so I felt it was quite clean to ingest. So I made some. I'd seen a recipe on a lovely channel I follow called Danu's Irish Herb Garden, and I'll link that in if I can work out how to do that, or otherwise I'll just write it in underneath. But anyway, it's called Midsummer Mead. And it's really, really easy. All you need is some honey and so raw local honey. And this is obviously a non-vegan recipe, but I'm a wonky vegan, so I do eat honey if I know where it's come from and know the beekeepers, which I do in this case. They live just down the lane. And anyway, you need the honey and you need a strong infusion of whatever herb you choose. And you use 1 part honey to 3 parts of the tea or infusion, which basically fills up a kilner jar like this, and then you sprinkle a little bit of yeast on top. And I added a slice of ginger because mugwort and ginger is a nice combination. But also I read, I think possibly the comments on that video that I was just mentioning, that somebody suggested that it helps the wild yeasts to find the concoction, and that helps it to ferment. It doesn't ferment. It's not a very alcoholic drink, which suits me well, because I don't drink particularly. Just as a celebratory thing, like a little bit of mead would be nice. But literally I can look at this after a week and I can bottle it, leave the top loose, and then a few days later it's ready to drink. So I'll just show you this is only from overnight, and look what's happened. It's actually fermenting really well. That's the piece of ginger in the top. When I looked at it this morning, it wasn't doing this, and this is a couple of hours later, and it's really got going, really frothing up. So I'm really pleased about that, and I thought that it should be ready for old Midsummer's Eve. So watch this space and I'll show you how it looks when I put it in the bottles. But meanwhile, as you can see, the colour of it is just so gloriously golden and midsummery. It couldn't be better for this time of the year. This is the St John's wort that I found last night on the green footpath, and I put it into my dark half of the year vase. I've got 2 vases like this, and one is a pale colour and one is this dark brown, and once the year has turned to the darker half, I then change the vase. I love just little things like that put you in tune with where we are in the year. They were in the kitchen overnight and they've actually started to come out, so you can see the golden stars and the stamens. I think they're really, really beautiful. I've never actually seen them quite so wispy as this before, but actually there's something very ethereal about them, like fairy gold. It's a fairly full-on couple of days, because not only was it Midsummer's Eve yesterday and Midsummer's Day today, St John's Day today, but it's also full moon tonight. And I just thought I would show you what I like to do when I remember, and I don't remember every time, but when I do, I like to uncover my sea-coloured marbles that I have here, and they're on my windowsill of the bedroom, and that actually faces the sea, and in fact you can hear the sea when it's quiet. I don't know quite why I do it, but I like the idea that the full moon comes down and imbues them with full moonlight, and they're also within the sound of the sea. I just think it gives them some sort of extra magic. And then I'll cover them up again with the lids. They've got a beautiful little pot. I can't remember when or where I got it, but years and years ago, many years ago. But it's got, as you can see, it's got birds flying on the lid. Just rather, and the dish is just a little blue dish, but just seems very lovely. Just place to keep the marbles.